Is the 15-minute rule like actually a thing?
I don't think so.
No, it's
Because a
not.
lot of teachers told me that it's not.
Is it if a teacher doesn't come within 15 minutes of class starting that you don't have class?
I don't know.
I think like if like the teacher's actually not coming, you get let out.
Okay, well, regardless, that doesn't concern you right now. So let's do this. All right, so you guys had the following bullet points. The word perfectus from your notes means what in Latin? Complete, good. Okay. Okay, the prefix in or im blanks a word. Good. All right, the imperfect tense in Latin is also known as blank action.
Continuous.
Yep, so you could have said continuous. What was the other one you said, Caitlin?
What? Oh, incomplete.
Incomplete, yeah. Okay, the perfect tense in Latin is also known as the simple past, yeah. Right, so in English that would be like she farted. I don't know, like simple past, like it's done, perfect, it's done, right? As opposed to she was farting, right? She could have been farting and like it's just continuously happening.
I love that farting is the first verb you think of.
Well, why wouldn't it be? The tense markers for the perfect tense are
B, S, U, S.
Yep. Okay. Next. The blank principal part is used for the present tense. Second. It's okay, we didn't exactly go over this yesterday, so. The blank principal part is used for the imperfect tense.
Second.
Yep, but which principal part's used for the perfect? The third, okay. So this is gonna kind of bleed over into our grammar lesson. You're gonna use this kind of as a notes template for you. But let's talk verb endings for a second, okay? Now, David made a good point. He said that because of these two bullets here, right, they're both using the second principal part, so that might make it mildly confusing, okay? But the reason why it's not confusing, I'll show you here. All right, so the present tense endings for verbs, does anyone remember what those are, Caitlin?
OST, listus,
Good. Okay, now the imperfect tense, imperfect sheep go what? Ba, okay? So in the imperfect, you're gonna have, so here in the present, there's no tense marker. Sorry, we're gonna extend that a little bit. Okay, but in the imperfect tense, there is a BA as your tense marker. Okay. Now, does anyone remember the imperfect endings?
Bas.
Yeah. Good. Bum, bus, but,
Vamos. That's something.
batis, and bant. Okay. Now, don't worry so much about the future right now. That's going to be a later us problem. Okay, in a couple chapters. Yeah, later us. Okay, now the perfect tense. What are the tense markers again?
B, S, U, and X.
Okay. And the endings are as follows. Okay, let me zoom in so you can see that.
Excuse me.
All right. Those are your perfect tense endings.
Wait, have we ever seen a word that ends with is T?
You might have, but I think if you did, they would have glossed it for you. Because you technically didn't learn that yet. Okay, now notice there will be a macron over this I. There will be a macron over this I. And I believe, there will be a macron over the E here. Okay, so just write them down. I'm not expecting you to know them, but just know that they do exist. Okay, say what? Huh?
Are you okay?
I'm having really bad allergies right
Do we have tissues in the room? Do you need me to go steal some? Are there any in
now.
that box?
No, I don't need the tissues, it's just so my nose itches.
Oh, okay.
No.
Okay.
Like, there's no mucus, it's just my nose is very itchy, and
Ah.
it's really annoying.
That's mucus to my ears.
Gee, I love talking about mucus.
Don't you know?
Yeah.
You know, you're actually supposed to swallow mucus because it goes to your, because it traps germs and it goes to your stomach, and your stomach acid kills the germs.
Very good to know.
This is a really weird conversation.
Yeah, so we're gonna move on.
Yeah.
It's 8:30 and we've already talked about farting and mucus. Great. We're doing good today, guys. We're doing well today, guys. Okay. So here's the deal. Let's take a verb. We're gonna conjugate it out just so you can see the process. And then you might understand the perfect tense a little bit better. Okay? So let's take a simple verb because everybody always does amo. I am not spelling correctly. Sorry. Okay. So far, so good? All right, so those are our 4 principal parts. Now, let's conjugate it out. We know that the present and the imperfect tense require which principal part? Good, the second. So we're going to take our infinitive. All right, so what's the process here? You find your infinitive, then what goes away? The RE goes away, and you're left with what we call the present stem, which is ama. Okay, ama is the present stem. All right. So let's conjugate it out. Let's do the present first. It's not going to be terribly neat, so sorry in advance. But the first one, is it amao?
It's
No, it's just amo, right? And they feed you that. They give you that there. So amo. But now we're going to use our present stem. So amo. Ama plus what is you love? Amas. How do I say he loves? How do I say we love? Amamas. How do we say y'all love? And how do you say they love? Okay.
I can't spell.
All right, now the imperfect, very similar process. Okay, we're still using our second principal part, which gives us our present stem. So we're going to use AMA. So ama, how do I say I was loving? I'm a bomb. Yeah. How do you say you were loving? I'm a boss. How do you say he, she, or it was loving? We were loving? Y'all were loving? Good. And they were loving? I'm a bond. Okay, good. All right. Okay, so we've done it in 2 tenses. Now, again, if you notice, we've got our tense markers here, right? BA, 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 and BA. One thing I do want to point out, reading Latin verbs is kind of like reading backwards, just so you guys know, if you were to break it up and decode these words themselves. So for example, I'm just going to zoom in here. You don't have to write this, but... Okay, if we've got the word amabamos, right? The mus tells us who, okay? And that's we. The ba tells us when, because it's a tense marker, right? And think tense is time. Okay, so we were blanking, all right? And this perfect stem tells us what? What is the action of the verb? Okay, and so now we know we were love. except you wouldn't have an E, right? Because loving, right? So does that, you see how you read the word backwards to kind of like fill it out,
My brain is like,
right? Yeah, it's when I first discovered that, I was like, whoa, that's kind of weird. All right, can I get rid of this? Okay. But that's just for your own personal knowledge. I won't test you on that. But sometimes it can help you. Okay. So now let's do the perfect tense. Now with the perfect tense, which principal part am I going to use? The third principal part, okay. So this is slightly different now, very similar process though. All right, so our third principal part is amawi. Now, amawi, if you notice, what is the ending of my first person singular in the perfect tense? It's just I. So what's super cool is that the third principal part is just your first person singular in the perfect tense. For every verb, yeah.
what?
I'll say it again. This principal part is this.
Oh,
They just give it to you.
oh.
Right, so in the same way that amo, they give you this,
Yeah.
right? Amawi is, so the third principal part is just that form. So we're gonna just write amawi here.
Present tense is like present tense first person singular is not always the most difficult part.
No, it is.
It is?
It is.
Wait, what?
Yeah. Because sometimes it's gonna be weird, and that's why they feed you that form. Because it doesn't use the stem, but all the other ones do.
Oh, so all the regular ones.
All the regular verbs, they're gonna give you the first principal part is the first person singular in the present tense. And the third principal part is the first person singular in the perfect tense.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and this will all kind of start to make sense when I show you like the overarching scheme of the verb chart. And it'll kind of make sense as to why they broke it up that way. Okay, but let's keep going. All right, so if I is my ending, then what is my perfect stem? Yeah, exactly. That I drops and we're left with AMAV. Okay, so my present stem, let's write that somewhere. Let's write it above the chart as a bullet point. So our present stem is the infinitive minus the RE. And the perfect stem is the third principal part
I spelled perfect wrong.
minus what?
Missy, are you writing something?
Yeah, up here.
Oh, this
Minus the I.
Good, minus the I.
I
All right.
spelled perfect wrong.
That's not perfect. Just kidding. Okay, so if my perfect stem is AMAV, how do I say you loved? Yeah, amawisti. Good. How do I say he, she, or it loved? Amawit. Good. How do I say we loved? Good. Y'all loved? Good. And they loved. Very quietly, I'm aware of, yes. Okay. All right, and if you notice, again, this has the V tense marker for the perfect, right? Remember, it could be V, S, U, or X. Sometimes it's none of those, but usually if you know your principal parts, they give you it, so like it's okay. You can figure out what your stem is from the principal parts.
What?
They give you this, so if, that's why when like Latin 1, when I gave you the vocab lists, I gave you all 4 principal parts of the verb every single time, because I didn't want you to have to go back and relearn them.
Are we supposed to memorize or not?
You should, yeah.
My mom checks me by telling me the English, and I have to list all 4 principal parts. I always get like 2 wrong.
But it's good practice. And eventually, like if you do start to memorize the principal parts, you start to notice patterns. So it's not as hard. It stops becoming a difficult chore, but that takes practice. And that's kind of on you guys to do, not really for me to check. Okay. Any questions so far? Does this kind of make sense? Okay, let me just explain kind of overarchingly what we have going on here. You don't have to write this, but I just want to kind of explain conceptually. All right, how many tenses are there in Latin?
7?
Oh.
It's
either
either
13,
4, 5,
11.
or 7.
So you see that there are 4 on the paper. There are actually 6.
Oh,
All right, and I will tell you what they are right now. You don't have to write this though. Okay, we've got the present. We've got the imperfect. We've got the future. Okay. Then we've got the perfect. We've got the pluperfect. And then we've got the future perfect. Now, what's interesting about Latin is that we know that the Romans were very aware of time based on the way they use tense, right? And that's kind of something interesting about language. You can learn a lot about the way a people's think based on the grammatical constructions that they have, right? So for example, like I think Chinese doesn't have tense, if I'm correct, but you do have like adverbs that are like day markers or tense markers to tell you when something is happening, which is different from Latin, right? Latin uses tense like it's pre-programmed as part of the word, but that might tell you something about the way those people think. You know what I'm trying to, like, does that make sense? Sort of? Okay. So there are 2 verb systems in Latin. This one is called the present verb system, all right? And that's easy to remember because present is the first one there. And this, can anyone guess what verb system this is called? The perfect verb system, yeah, right? And that's easy to remember because the perfect tense is like right in there, okay? Now, what's super easy about this is that in the present verb system, you're gonna use the second principal part, or the infinitive, to conjugate. And in the perfect verb system, you're gonna use the third principal part. Okay, which means you're going to have different stems. So this is going to use the present stem, and that's why we call it that, because it's part of the present system. And the perfect is going to give you the perfect stem, the third principal part. Okay, and that's because it belongs to the perfect system. All right, does that kind of make sense too? Like why it is that way? All right, so most Latin textbooks, what they'll do is they'll teach you the present, the imperfect, and the future first. That'll be like the first thing they do. For whatever reason, this textbook is weird, and they skip the future, they jump straight to the perfect, and then they do the future later. I don't know why, but whatever. I didn't write it.
Why do we use this book?
Because that's what my predecessor used, and I haven't changed it yet.
Who's your predecessor?
Mrs. Pavo.
I have no idea who that is.
She's around. She pops by every now and then. She was at graduation, and she visits campus a lot. But she's at the Geneva School now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she uses this book.
She uses Eke also?
Well, our earlier Latin classes used Jenny's, and then they should finish it in like 8th grade, and then in 9th and 10th they do like Eke Romani, like it's like yellow or something. I don't know what it is. It's like yellow. Or orange.
It's orange? Okay, that's Eke Romani 3. Ooh.
Okay.
That's weird. That's a really weird setup.
I like
Yeah, I'm a Jenny's girl myself, but I don't know if you can get the textbook anymore. I think it's expensive because it's out of print. I don't think it's in print anymore. Yeah, it's like vintage. I have my dad's textbook from his high school days. He's still got like his little notes in the margins and stuff.
Which one is?
You two can speak Latin together.
My dad remembers nothing. He's like, yeah, I took Latin because I had
What
to.
book is expensive?
What was his what?
What book is expensive?
His Latin textbook from high school. I have it.
Wow.
Yeah, he
Not in
kept
a year. It was not in a year for me.
Yeah, it shouldn't be. I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot of grammar.
First year Latin, that's what it's called.
Yeah. Okay, so essentially that's just like the overarching scheme of what we're doing, right? So right now you are aware of the present tense, you are aware of the imperfect tense, and now you're aware of the perfect tense as well. Okay, we will get to these 3 eventually, just not right this second. Okay, any questions on that? Good? Okay, no, I'm not gonna show you that just yet, I'll hold. All right, let's go through some exercises, okay, practicing these forms. Unless you guys wanna do a conjugation on your own and then we check it.
Can we do with all of them by ourselves and then
No.
I did that.
I tried.
You tried?
It worked well.
Oh, for this?
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's do like one or two together and then, I'll set you guys off to do the rest on your own. And then we'll review them, of course. Okay, so this first line here is an example given for you. All right, so in order to do this successfully, you may or may not need to use the glossary in the back of the book if you don't have your principal parts memorized. So they give you, we're working with the perfect tense here, okay? And right now we're only working with third person singular and third person plural, right? So what are the endings for my third person singular in the perfect tense? IT, okay? And what's my third person plural? Erund, good. Okay, so right now that's all we're working with just for this exercise. All right, now if you notice, right before the ending, right, similarly to that decoding example of Amabam I showed you, or Amabamos, sorry, that I showed you before, we've got our ending, which is IT. What's my tense marker? V. Okay, and then my stem is intra. All right, so that's what you would write in the perfect stem marker, that it's V. Okay, the infinitive, you would just either look it up or you need to know it. And then then you just give the meaning of the verb. Okay, that's all we're asking you to do. So let's go through an example together and then we should be Gucci. All right. So, custodiwerunt. All right. First things first, my ending is what? Erunt. So that means my tense marker is a V. Okay, so I'm going to write that. So what then is my stem? What's my perfect stem? Yep, so let's write that in this box here. Custodiv. Now, what is my third person singular ending again? IT. So it's just custodiwit. That's it. Okay? Okay, and then you would go and you would look up this verb and you would find the infinitive and you would tell me the meaning. Okay, does that kind of make sense to everybody? Okay, so I'm going to do you want to do one more example together or?
Can we do the next one?
The next one's slightly trickier. Okay, so we're talking perfect tense here. What's my first person, I'm sorry. Let's rewind. What's my third person singular ending? IT. Okay, so then what's my tense marker? U. And is that one of the perfect tense markers? Yeah, V sucks, right? That's how I remember it. V sucks. Yep, VSUX. V sucks. That'll help it stick. Okay, so we're gonna write U here. Now, from this information, we already have our stem, which is going to be what? What's my perfect stem? Timu. Yep. And so what's my third person plural ending? Erund. So it's just Timu Erund. That's it. Yeah, that's it. You're essentially working backwards to work forwards. That's what I'm asking you to do.
Oh, this is so much easier.
Yeah, it's really not that bad. Okay, so go through, finish the rest of these.
It makes sense.
Textbook.
Oh, yes. Okay, yep.
I can do it.
Really? Oh, thank you, Lisa. Cool beans. Oh, man, you guys are so helpful. I love that. All right, so work on these, and then we'll come back together as a group and go through the rest.